All right, all right. Glad to be back. Glad to be back. All right, we are live here today. I am hoping I should be able to see the comments. Want to check in live? Let me check my phone here to make sure I can see my feed. All right. If you guys see us, give us a holler. As I take a look here where we're at. All right. We're going to give it a second. Get our subscribers on. Get people who, anybody who may see the feed. Get you guys on here. All right. Yep, we're live here. Good. I see it on YouTube, and now I will confirm that on Facebook. Yeah, we're live on Facebook too. All right, I see the Facebook comments. Let me make sure that that we show. No, we're gonna. All right, we're gonna be tuning in here, y'all. Just making sure that we're live where we need to be and that I can see everything that I need to see on my end. All right. Shalom, shalom, y'all. Appreciate y'all. I see we got viewers here. So I'm just I'm giving it a second. I noticed that I don't see my comments here. Let's see. Make sure I have everything on here. StreamYard should read post. Good. There may be a delay, so let me wait on that too. All right, y'all. Well, I don't see the comments. I see them on down here, but all right, but I have a way to see them, so we'll be okay. Gabriel, how you doing, my brother? Brenda, how you doing? Adam, how you doing, my brother? Glad that you guys are tuning in here. We also have, we're also live on YouTube right now. But without further ado, I want to introduce my buddy. Here I'm bringing him in now. El Señor, meaning Mr. Henry Santiago. I wish I had the little clap thing right to the side, but I'm going to make sure my engineer works on that for me. So, but I wanted to bring him in. This is a very interesting brother of mine. We often sit down and stand up and we talk and we communicate. We call each other. We have interesting conversations. He's not a youngin'. He's an elder. Elder in our community too. I look up to him. He's a good dad. He's a good granddad. He lived his life. He got a lot of experience in life. And that's what I'm here for personally. I'm here to share that with my young brothers, with my up-and-coming brothers, and just with everybody, help understand a striving man's perspective, try to help share and share whatever we can and add whatever we can, out there that's positive and open your mind up. It's not the normal conversation probably that you would have at work and whatnot, but it's definitely worth exploring and checking us out and opening your mind to what we're going to discuss. So, Henry, I appreciate you being here, my brother.
Oh man, thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me here.
Wonderful. So, y'all who don't know, Henry, he's a very stylish guy. He's a very, very stylish guy. He always dresses with a nice wardrobe. It really reminds me, of just a classic man, a nice and classy man. These days, it's a different type of guy coming up. But I like that. I like, someone who always holds himself with a nice regard, with a nice esteem. So tell us about, your why, the value that you share in making sure you're always well presented. Talk to me about that.
Poverty, man. Listen, I grew up without having a lot of things to wear, a lot of clothing to wear, so it was kind of scarce. But you watch the old movies and you see all these guys dressing up real nice. I mean, you could be shallow about it, I suppose, but I like wearing nice clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't sacrifice anything to have them. I just, other than me trading my time for the money I make. But I like, sometimes when you feel down, man, all you have to do is dress up. Pretend. Everybody's pretending every day. We pretend in all kind of different ways. So, but I like wearing clothes. I like wearing nice clothes.
Right.
Even when I'm wearing some blue jeans or stuff, I have, khakis or whatnot. I really like to have a crease on my pants. This is the way we grew up back in the 60s and 70s. And I've never forgotten that. So
I like a crease in my pants too, to be honest with you. I like a nice crease. Even in my past when I was struggling, as a youngin, when I was visiting upstate, we used to take the pants and we used to put them under the mattress, and we used to pin them between.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we used to crease them that way. Yeah, and we'll put a little bit of water on there, a little bit of soap on there, and then we'll put them down there, and we'll just lay on them overnight, and then we'll crease them for our visit. If someone would come to visit us over the weekend, we would have our visiting clothes on, or essentially like the weekend clothes.
That's a good attitude to have under those conditions. But listen, I can iron my rear end off. Give me just about anything, I'll iron it. I can do my best. If I can't do it, then I can't do it. But I like ironing.
I do too. I like to have crispy clothes. I like to have clean clothes all the time, regularly. I put some effort into it. I'm carefulness into it, believe it or not. I don't know how the level of people iron, but definitely,
Well, I can iron with both hands. So, but I this is the thing. Just like washing dishes, just like when you're doing anything, even gardening. When I'm ironing, or if I'm doing a little bit of gardening, or when I'm washing dishes, but mostly ironing and gardening, you go through a lot of thoughts. You can really weed out your mind out of a lot of things, discover things about yourself, think about, it's relaxing, thoughtful, even educational in some ways, because all of a sudden something will pop up in your head. And I'm a firm believer that if you're thinking the right things, you'll get an affirmation somehow, some way, a little bit later on. But thank you for the compliment. Like I said, I like dressing up. I used to iron my kids' clothes all the time, and I made sure their clothes were crispy iron.
All right, speak on that, Dad. Ironing the kids' clothes. Speak on how you came up a little bit.
On how I came up as a kid?
Yeah. Well, as a kid, and then all the way to having kids.
Well, man, there was 12 of us in the household. My mom and pop 14, small apartment. My old man had his own business. God rest his soul. It was a rough life, man. It was a rough life, but it was a beautiful one. It was for me personally, it was kind of a culture war too, because they're from Puerto Rico. I'm born here, raised here, and it was rough. I lost a lot of the culture, lost a lot of the Puerto Rican culture, and I made it a point to learn about it. Because what I was being taught in school wasn't really. I really couldn't identify with it because I was identifying with people like George Washington and the likes of all those other Europeans. So, I met a good brother, God rest his soul. I heard he passed away, a guy from the Puerto Rican Independence Party, Puerto Rican Socialist Party, actually. And he was from New York. And he introduced me to our history, to Puerto Rican history, a lot of culture. And I took it from there. I've learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things on the way. I bumped heads. I fell down. I said and did some things that weren't right in the journey. But I always say, if you're Puerto Rican, you're Mexican, you got some, you have indigenous roots. Most of us have indigenous roots from the Americas and the Caribbean. So, and we also have our own style. Like, it was a rough life, man. Gang life. I got out of that. A lot of other things, drugs. I've never been addicted. That's too much commitment to be addicted to any drug. That's the way I see it. And I think that's what helped me. There's different types of fear. There's a fear that, you run away from. There's a fear that kind of wakes you up, because you have a certain love for yourself, and that fear will come in and say, hey, listen, you're destroying ourselves, you're destroying us. And that's a good fear. Then you have to have a little bit of courage, and there's a fear of walking away from your friends, their lifestyles, but that's a good fear. It's like a fear when you're on the edge of something. You know that if you go any further, it's gonna, it might be the end of yourself. And that's a good fear. And then there's the fear that destroys you, the fear of, like what they say, you see all these people, you hear all these people, and they're talking about fear of going forward and doing something for yourself. I've suffered from that quite a bit as well. So my life up in I guess you would call it West Town, in between Humboldt Park and Wicker Park, right there.
Chicago.
About 2 blocks away from Clemente High School.
Okay.
Before it was Clemente, I was 2 blocks north of there. And, it was a rough life, man. When I first went to school, I went to a school which was all white kids just about. So when we moved to where I grew up in, this is funny because I seen Puerto Ricans, a lot of us, for the first time, and they scared me. Because I don't know how to explain it, but they scared me. And man, I seen our people go through a lot of stuff over there.
What do you mean by that? You seen Puerto Ricans for the first time and they scared you?
Well, where I was at was basically all Italians and whites. And so when I came, and I passed for a white kid a little bit, but for them, they knew I wasn't. So when we came into the Humboldt Park area, so to speak, I went to this school and I seen our people, and it was kind of rough and tumble. I was like about 8 years old. It was a different vibration. I was a little bit afraid, because I seen all these people, and then I seen a lot of black people too. But I was already kind of used to that because my pops had a shop up there by Paulina and Madison. But just how the kids were interacting.
Did you grow up here?
What do you mean?
In Chicago? Did you grow up in Chicago all your life?
All my life in Chicago, man. The West Town area.
All right.
That encompassed south of Division Street a little bit. That's where I was at, by Chicago Ashland area. And that was predominantly Italian and other white Europeans.
That's not too far. It's not too far from, Little Italy over there?
No,
like right on the other side?
Well, that's the first ward. That's where the Grand Avenue, I don't think they called that Little Italy, but that's where a lot of mafiosos were.
Right. So so there's definitely predominantly known for the Italian.
Yeah, that was the first
culture.
That was a lot of mobsters on Grand Avenue, I heard. I never really met them. I did meet the mobster of mobsters of Chicago, though, in St. Mary's Hospital. I took him down for an x-ray. Looked at his name, man, and I said, man, I know this name. When I was going up there to get this name is ringing a bell, man. I go upstairs, I see him when I used to work at St. Mary's, they had him in the isolation room, but I didn't see no paperwork on the glass. So I went to the nurse's station. Is this guy under isolation? Said, no, man. They just told us to put him there. And I looked, so that's I says, I'm looking at his name. This guy sounds like he's famous or something. And all the nurses would say, yeah, we were just talking about it. I goes, yeah, this guy's somebody. And I went over there and knocked on his door, went through the first door and then got to the other door, and I says, sorry too, I just walked in there and I dressed myself. I said, sorry to bother you, Mr. Anthony Arcado, but I'm here to take you down for an x-ray. It was like about 10 o'clock at night. And when I turned on I asked him, can I turn on the light? He says, yeah, please. And I turn on the light and I see his wife all the way in the corner sitting in the chair. And they're up there in age. And I'll never forget how I asked, I had brought the wheelchair. Says, hey, can you want to get in the wheelchair? He gets in the wheelchair. I put down a little footrest for him and his work. I tell his wife, he'll be back shortly. There's no one down there, so he won't be long. And so as we're going down the corridor, I says, Mr. Arcado, I says, I'm looking at your name. I says, you somebody famous? And I'll never forget the way he did it. He's sitting in the chair, and he looked up, he says, I'm a nobody, kid. I'm a nobody. and me being me, man, I said, no, you're somebody. He goes, no, I'm a nobody, kid. So we get to the door, we go downstairs. I go into I tell him to get up into the room. He just has to put on one of the hospital gowns, take off his robe, his pajama top. And I go to the back, and all the people are there. I say, hey, Jerry, man, this guy's somebody. I don't know who he is, but he's somebody. I'm holding up he says, yeah, we were talking about that. We can't figure out who this guy is. His name sounds familiar.
And who was he again?
Anthony Arcado.
And who was he?
Well, let me just
you're getting there? Okay, my bad. I don't want to spoil it.
So I take him back upstairs to his room. Really nice person, man. Very genuine. Really nice guy. And I said good night to him and his wife. And then when I get home that night, I'm listening to the repeat news, and I'll never forget, it was Channel 2 News, CBS. And I'm watching the repeat news like maybe at midnight or something like that, 1 o'clock in the morning. And then they bring up, says, yes, and the U.S. Marshals and the FBI are trying to find Mr. Anthony Big Tuna Arcado, Chicago's godfather.
Wow.
Yeah, the boss of the outfit, Chicago outfit. They're looking for him to give him some subpoenas, and I'm sitting there looking. I go, I knew that dude was somebody.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Well, they got him the next day. I'm pretty sure someone else who encountered him there ratted on him. I would have never ratted on him.
What, at the hospital, you mean?
Yeah, because when I came to work the next day, the security guard told me that the agents were there to serve him the subpoena, and this is really. I was just amazed that he said that the head of security and the securities tried to stop them, and they were threatened with arrest, in contempt, and they would be sitting over at the Metropolitan Correctional Center.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Oh yeah, they gangstered their way up there. They let everybody know exactly where they were. But
so what did he go to jail for? Ultimately, what was his outcome?
Anthony Arcado never spent the night in jail.
He never spent the night in jail.
Nope, that's the mob of mobsters. Never did time, and he got off of that, I believe.
Clearly, if he ain't spent the night in jail, they let him go.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Lawyers, probably money and lawyers. Influence. That's how things work. You know how this is Chicago, isn't it? We're talking about Little Italy, right?
Well, I got to tell you, a lot of people talk about Al Capone. This guy was Al Capone's driver for a while too.
Huh?
Yeah, he never spent the night in jail, but a really nice guy,
Mm-hmm.
People who are really sure of themselves. They don't have to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Probably some of the deadliest too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're busy. First of all, they're busy. They ain't got time to be trying to prove any points. They got things to do. They need to be productive. They need to accomplish their tasks. They need to execute things. So you're always going to find that with people who are, busy like that and got things going on in life. They're always going to be a little bit,
Yeah, but the guy was really nice. But getting back to what you said, man, yeah. The life I led was, I know a lot of guys, know a lot of people ended up doing time in the joint, dying, getting murdered. But, you have to come to a point and realize something that, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This isn't for me. And part of that, I came to that was, a few things. One of them was religion. The other thing was finding out about my culture and how, and our relationship as Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico to the United States.
I want to talk about that. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was, and it's an abusive relationship,
Mm-hmm.
And
well, let me start before you Puerto Rico and United States. As far as Puerto Rico, you did mention that you had touched base with one of the Puerto Rican political prisoners of war. Is that one of the brothers that was engaged in that thing that happened in Clemente, or the one that happened in the courthouse, like in '79 or something like that, '78?
Well, first of all, when I was going to Tulia High School, we had our street gangs there. We, for the first time, saw a Puerto Rican student counselor. And I got to tell you, everyone gave that lady respect. And even though she wasn't my counselor, she went to court with me. She got me into college. She was an impact on everybody there.
Wonderful. I love it.
And, you know, her name is Carmen Valentin.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, everybody, you know, I never heard of anyone disrespecting her. And
shout out to Carmen. Shout out to Carmen for having a positive impact on all those young minds around her. There are good people out here. There are good people out here who are trying to do positive, you know?
They arrested her with Oscar Lopez and all of them. And, you know, they said that she was a terrorist, but I don't, you know.
Yeah, I read about her. I read about her. Yep. Mm-hmm.
She's a beautiful person, beautiful human being, man. Down for our people, just like Oscar Lopez is. They did the ultimate sacrifice, you know, just like Don Pedro Aviso Campos. Well, this guy called David Santiago was the one who introduced me to the whole Puerto Rican independence movement. He introduced me to so much because he was out there handling the Claridad newspaper, and he was out there, and I confronted him, you know, and I was like 16 years old, man, thinking I'm some top dog and stuff, you know, I'm just another knucklehead out there, you know, lost, man. Mm-hmm. This guy asked me a question because I was supporting the United States. I said, oh, don't bring that communism stuff here and all that. And it was something I'll never forget that he asked me. He says, do you know who your Puerto Rican heroes are in Puerto Rican history? And man, the light bulb went off. And I looked at him and I go, no, what are you talking about? He says, you don't know? He says, meet me over here on Division Ash. I think it was the Northwest Community Organization they used to work out of. And I went there. The curiosity got to me, man. And I went there. And I walked into that place, and this guy had a whole wall. And that's when he says, do you know who this person is? That person is this person. And I said, no. He said, this is Don Pedro Aviso Campos. This is Emetario Betanza. This is Jose de Diego. And he started going down the line. And man, from there, I started learning.
Good.
And I never looked back on it. And, you know, even this guy, Oscar Lopez, he used to teach in our neighborhood, in the little neighborhood that we lived in at St. Aloysius. They had a parking lot there. They had some mobile units there. And I don't know if today that is the one of the charter schools. It's Puerto Rican charter school. But in any event, they were teaching out of those mobile units, man. And we used to hang right on that block, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what led me. You know, this guy David Santiago led me, and then Carmen Valentin came into the picture in the high school, and things just went from there, man. I learned a lot, mm-hmm. And I wish I would have learned more. You know, I mean, my Spanish is not really good at all. But you know what, man? We have a lot of Puerto Ricans who speak Spanish and sell our people out day in and day out.
Yeah, I know. Especially, you know, in my experience, a lot of Spaniards, you know, because so how our island, first of all, we're a commonwealth. For people who don't know about Puerto Rico, we're a commonwealth. In my opinion, that's just modern day colonization. So they control our economy, and they give us access to come back and forth here. You know, some of the benefits of being an American citizen. But by them controlling our economy, that does it. You know, that's a lot of control, isn't it?
You know, there's two things. First of all, Commonwealth. You can't be a Commonwealth unless you're an independent nation. That's the number one thing there. And I just found that out recently. You can't be a Commonwealth.
Is that what they say?
Yes, I read that. I seen it last year on some video that Commonwealths are usually nations that either come under the independent nations that come under the protection of the nation that at one time was colonized. You know, Canada, you know, is one of them, and you see a lot of that throughout the world. Commonwealth, this country, and there.
Well, think about it though for a second. So a country like United States conquers or is in charge of an island like Puerto Rico, and then Puerto Rico escapes it and becomes independent by coming under the protection of it. So
then it would be a Commonwealth.
And what are we now?
Just a colony, straight up colony, a cash cow.
right now we're a colony. We're not a commonwealth at the moment.
It's free associated state. That's a colony. It's what's in a name. What's in a name? You can put any name you want to. If you're prostituting someone and you're ripping and you're taking, making money for you. And
that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with the land.
That's it.
Well, Puerto Rico in Spanish, it stands for rich port.
Right.
And one of the things that they utilize is the soil on the island, because it's a very nice environment to grow crops and stuff like that, bean and corn and whatnot. So I from my understanding and the things that I looked into, they often overuse the soil. They don't let it rest enough for the crops to grow properly and whatnot. That's one thing that I look at when I see that. But calling it a rich port, this is what their idea was, because it was it's a land that you can cultivate. It was all they seen was dollar signs in it, so they call it basically. But now they control it for the most part, don't they?
Yeah, the United States controls just about the whole world, and there's certain people, as you know, that control that we don't even know about, and they reside in Europe, and they control everyone else.
So that's one of my direct questions that I have today. So I'll make that what my first actual official question here, even though I'm just responding a little bit to some of your background and trying to get a little bit of understanding, and then also share a little bit of a little bit of what I know on it. Now. So is the Commonwealth, is that the official title though? Like,
no, I think it's free associated state.
It's a free associated state. That's what, like on the books with Congress and with the Senate, like that's.
I would suppose, man, but
I wouldn't. I'm just, that's what I'm asking.
What does it matter in the name? What really matters is what they're allowed and not allowed to do. Imagine you. And this goes even to, this is a mafia move. When you watch the old mafia movies or you read about it, you have a store that they purchase to purchase their products, they purchase from different vendors, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine the mob comes and says, we have everything. So you can only purchase from us, and it's gonna cost you more. You've got no say-so in that. And that's what basically is happened to Puerto Rico when they introduced that Jones Act. Puerto Rico has to purchase everything straight from the U.S., the United States, even though it would be cheaper if it came on the ships and went directly from Europe, Africa, or anywhere else, straight to the island. It would be cheaper. But see, that's a form of being independent and self-sufficient. And then Puerto Rico could sell its products to the whole world.
So we're not free.
Nah, there's free.
We're like I look at it as modern slavery, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I look at it like that. Yeah, in even the direction of the education over there. But is Puerto Rico even allowed to do commerce and to exchange commerce with its neighboring islands like Trinidad?
It cannot do anything. Anything that comes to Puerto Rico has to be flying a U.S. ship, a flag on the ships.
So now Puerto Rico itself, it consists of how many nation of people? Of my understanding, we have a Spaniard base. Spaniards were the colonizers. They're the ones that got there. They encountered the native Indians that were there, and then they basically went to war with the men. Stripped them of their right to the land, depleted the workforce and the labor force and the slave force, imported Africans or Shemites from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade, populated the island, and that's where the slave trade began in Puerto Rico. That's where the Afro-Latino aspect came in. Is that your understanding of the history of Puerto Rico?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to confirm that. And so when someone asks me if I'm Puerto Rican, though, I do acknowledge it, but I also let them know though that you can also only really be one thing, like let's say I could go under the belief that you are what your father is, because that's what the seed is, right? So the seed determines the chromosome, right?
Right.
So like the the dad, with a mom, she gets pregnant. We know the birds and the bees story. But then, when a child is born, that the lineage would be the father's lineage, whatever the father is, because that's where the seed originated. That's where the life originated from. It didn't, it was birthed and it was nurtured and it was developed and it evolved inside of the womb of the woman. But this is my understanding of things. But ultimately, genetically, it is what you are, what your father is. Is that what your understanding is?
Well, have you had your DNA done?
I have done a DNA, yes. I don't recall.
All right, they're saying, I don't know how accurate this is, because everything can be manipulated, just like what you were just saying about lineages from your father. I had my DNA done with 2 different companies. They were pretty much the same, but the one thing they both say, their statement is that you get 50% of your lineage from one parent and the other, So it shows my DNA, and the more DNA testing they do, they get more information. So it looks like your DNA changes. Your DNA doesn't change as much as the information that they're learning changes. So like for me, for instance, one of the DNA testing sites pushed up my indigenous DNA up, where the other one pretty much kept it the same. It shows that both my parents have African, indigenous. One of my parents has more Ashkenazi Jew than the other one. They don't call it Jew; they just say Ashkenazi.
Well, Ashkenazi is not Jew, technically, according to the history of Ashkenaz.
Yeah, well, I won't go into the whole religious aspect of it, but they have, there's Eastern Ashkenazi in both of them. There's Spaniard and Portuguese. But I remember when I first got my DNA, it said I had Italian and Greek. That was pretty much pushed out. There's Irish, there's Scottish, quite a bit of African too, up to about 14 to 15% African from about 6 different countries. So, but here's the thing, man. Puerto Rico is a colonial name, just like the language that we speak, Spanish, even what I'm speaking now is a colonial. It's not an indigenous language from the Americas. So that's, and change is hard, man. When I first started learning about this, it was a little bit difficult for me. And people today still, I don't go by Hispanic or Latino. I'm not a European. I'm not from there. I'm born in the United States, which is indigenous land, in the Americas. My roots is indigenous. And everything else is, it's just like a black Puerto Rican who probably takes a DNA. It shows that they have mostly African, So they would be considered, I understand when they say Afro-Boricua, So I understand that. But here's the thing, man. We are Boricuas, we are Puerto Rican. And right now we're controlled by the United States,
Absolutely.
And let me tell you something. Ain't nobody going to conquer your land and make you a better person. You're there to be used, exploited, and everything else. People get angry when I say this. They say, well, you owe things to the United States, show some respect. I said, I don't owe anybody anything, anyone anything. I've labored, I pay my taxes, extortion, whatever it is. I did it. That's why, I seen that thing where Snoop Dogg, when he won an award, he said, I'd like to thank me for never giving up on me. He was right. I think that was awesome. And look at you, man. Your boy, a lot of people say, oh, if Puerto Rico was independent, it'd fall apart. And they give examples of all the other Caribbean nations there. But what they don't like to talk about, they won't acknowledge, most of them, is that the United States has interfered with everyone there. Haiti, still stepping on them bad, because they set it off, man. They helped. Not only did they become independent, they reverted the name back to the indigenous name, ID. That's how much love and respect they had for the land and for the people that were conquered. they weren't Tainos. Most of them were Africans, and possibly brought in from other, nations from the Americas there, But then they helped the Dominican Republic. They helped all of South America and Central America get their independence from Spain. They set a precedent. And Europe has always shown, man, when you defeat them, they come back like, they come back to destroy you, man. They don't care. Once you start, see, this is the whole thing. A lot of people don't want to know about this because it makes them uncomfortable, and that's understandable. That's completely understandable. But man, I seen this. I remember when I was working with this guy, and he used this term to describe Puerto Ricans. A black dude, good guy. He used the word Spanish niggers, and I had never heard that before. I said, "What the hell's that?" And as soon as I heard him, after I heard him use that phrase, I'm watching this movie. I don't know what this black guy's name is. This black actor, he's very prominent, he's famous, and he was in some movie about drug dealing, and someone was murdered. I guess it was in Brooklyn or in the Bronx, and someone was murdered, and they were murdered by some Puerto Ricans, and he used the phrase, "Who murdered them?" The guy says, "I don't know." He goes, "Come on, was it them Spanish niggers, them Puerto Ricans?" And I started laughing because it brought me to this guy, And I'm thinking, man, if he's heard that phrase, which I had never heard of, who else is using that don't like us, or that's been brainwashed not to like us? Because, man, I tell you, I've when I was hired by the state in 2 different jobs by the state, I was told, "You took a white man's job." And I just looked at them. I said, "Really?" And the thing about it is I ended up excelling in both those positions. People that I bumped heads with in the beginning respected me thereafter, because I didn't come at them with a bunch of, beating on my chest. So I came to them, and I came with knowledge, and I showed them respect, and I helped them even on the job, I had one person tell me, "You're okay for a Puerto Rican." And we both chuckled. I go, "You're okay for an Italian, a white person." He was offended. I said, "What are you getting angry for?" He says, "I don't know what you mean by that, blah, blah, blah." I can't remember the whole thing. I says, "It's okay for you to say, but not for me to say, and I'm not angry about it." And he thought, and he said, "You know what, you're right, man. I'm sorry." People are ignorant, man. They've been conditioned to use fear. Just like for the fear of independence, that's how without the United States, Puerto Rico would sink. Like, if we're not capable, our people are not capable of anything. And here you are with your own podcast, your business. And this is what I bring out. You're able to do whatever you're able to do. America, United States, ain't nobody did this for you. You got up and you did it yourself. They like to say this is the greatest country in the world. It's pretty narcissistic,
Yeah.
That, as I told you, I'm no longer a Christian. I don't subscribe to any religion. But man, what does it say in the scriptures? Pride is what brings people down. You could find all kind of great stuff in all these religions, and there's a lot of wisdom there. And then someone comes and takes that vessel and uses it for their own propaganda, for their own purpose.
Yeah. There's a meme that I see all the time that says, it says the Bible is real, but don't let a liar teach it.
There you go.
Because there's a lot of good advice. There's a lot of positive things that you can get from the Bible. It's definitely my biggest source of inspiration in general. So, but no, I hear what you're saying here.
Yeah, man. I mean, I seen this old movie. I think it was from the 50s, and I can't think of what this actor's name is. Something Ford, and he's a cowboy. His son asked him. The preacher says that anyone who doesn't believe in God will go to hell. He says, "Do you believe this? If someone who doesn't believe in God, can they go to heaven?" And the father tells him, he says, "Yeah, I believe that." I can't remember exactly what his explanation was for this. But then here's the thing. Years later, there's this. I used to listen to Moody Bible Radio all the time, and there was a pastor on there, Pastor Don Cole. I'll never forget that man. I'm sure he's long gone, but man, that dude. If you want to learn about scriptures, that's the man. This guy had a radio show, and someone called in and asked him. The guy asked him. He said, "Well, first he states, listen, I don't believe in God." He says, "I don't believe in Jesus." He said, "But let's just say, when I die, and I meet Jesus, and I bow down and recognize him, will he let me get into heaven, or will I automatically go to hell?" And the pastor starts chuckling. He goes, "Well, listen, man, Jesus is gonna do whatever he wants to do. Yeah, he could say, come on in. You know, who am I to say what Jesus is gonna do?" But then he ends it with this. He goes, "But look how much nicer your life would have been had you believed him when you were living." See, that's the kind of teaching that people need. Anytime someone's gonna teach you out of fear, that negative fear, that's ridiculous. You know, if people keep telling you, run away from this, run away from that, well, where are you going to run to?
where are you going to run off the earth?
Tell them, listen, if you do this, this is what hopefully should happen. That's all. You know, and I don't know, man. Let me tell you something. The more I learn, the more I realize, and everyone knows this cliche, if you get any type of sense, you realize you don't know Jack Daniels, man. You don't know Jack. And you're always gonna learn. I had a conversation with you about the Ashkenazi, that they're the Edomites. Well, about a week or two later, and I know I texted you about it, I saw a video where it was speaking on that. And I like to learn, man. There's these videos, documentaries called Hidden Colors. And man, when you watch those, like when the first time I watched them, I was reluctant to listen, but I stayed there and watched it. I went through 5 of those documentaries, and by these same people, educated black people, and I think they may have had one or white two people on there. But man, this is education. Not one time did they, in that documentary, anything about hate. Not one thing.
What were they doing? Just sharing historical information, archaeological information?
They were showing about they were speaking about Egypt, in which they say that's the Greek name, but you know, it's Kemet. But the thing about it, they were teaching scriptures before there were ever Hebrews, Islam, or any Christianity or anything like that. And they got the Book of the Dead, they got the 42 laws, I think that's what it is. And that's where they say they get the 10 commandments out of. The difference in those, the difference is how it's said.
Yeah, they say in the 42 laws of God, say in their active speaking, if they're active speaking.
Right. I have not, rather than I will not.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say I have not, you're saying what you didn't do, what you haven't done. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a reinforcement manifesting that you won't do that. Mm-hmm. Man, everybody falls, you know. The one thing I like about Scripture in the New Testament is everyone has come short of the glory of God, right? Well, you could put, you know, everyone's incomplete in some way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, judge lest ye be judged. People like say, oh, you shouldn't judge people. Yeah, you should judge people. But how do you judge them is the question.
Well, the Bible does say that you're allowed to righteously judge.
Yeah, but when Jesus comes along, he wants to clarify things, right? Mm-hmm. He says, in the same way you judge, manner, that's the way you're going to be judged. And that's the thing about this country and people in here. Like when they look to Cuba and they say all the negatives about Cuba. And I used to try to defend all this stuff. I said, listen, you know what? I said, I just realized. I says, you're willing to look at all their shortcomings, but you're willing to glorify all the devils that this country has produced that goes around the world and committing all these atrocities, all these crimes. And yet you say America is the greatest. And yet they won't even take care of their own people here. You know? Mm-hmm. I said, once you start looking at where you live at, and you look at it, and you really start thinking about it, analyzing it. And if you're willing to accept that, then you ain't got nothing to say about no one else. You know, because if they took away all our comforts today, man, everybody here be hating America. They be hating the United States. You know, they think they won't. They say they're patriotic.
But that's why you can't put your heart on that stuff.
No, man.
You can't put your, you know, you can't, the material stuff, man, and all this, these advances that this country provides us, all these comforts and conveniences, you can't put any type of emotion into it, to need it, to want it, to only be able to function like that. You lose touch like that, actually.
Yeah, you know, like, and if you understand history, if you know it, it's all been stolen. Think about it. You know, people don't get caught up in the patriotic stuff. Don't become a zealot, because then you lose all your reasoning.
So speaking of zealots, I have a question. My first official question here I want to present to you. It may open up a can of worms, but in your opinion here, who actually governs the world? Who actually governs the world?
If I knew that, I'd be dead.
Let's talk about it though. What does the evidence say to you? Where does the point to, you know, who's setting the agenda in the earth right now? You know, maybe that's a way to narrow it down.
Well, I've seen a few videos, and there's some family called the Cassini family, and they're out of Rome. They say that the head families are all out of Rome. They're Babylonians. They're with the Babylonian occult, and they've been around for
thousands of years, probably.
Well, they say, you know, since the end of the Roman Empire, right when the old Roman Empire was around. I'm not sure. I mean, they give some interesting arguments and information. Excuse me. And it's just something to ponder on. You know, if you dismiss it right away, well, then you're still believing in a lie. You're just believing in someone else's lie. But they point to a lot of things. You know, I even seen a video today. I don't know if it's in a movie, but it has Eisenhower, Richard M. Nixon, and John F. Kennedy when he comes into the White House to get a briefing. And they show him some photographs of aliens, UFO with people, and then it cuts to another scene. And the funny thing about it is, I've heard this before, with the United States is allowing for abductions and experiments on human beings just so they can get the technology. So, you know, same thing. The United States is the muscle for these people who run the world right now. And these people aren't shy about it. You see at that World Economic Forum, that guy, Carl Schwab, pretty sure he's a Zionist. He's glorifying China. That they will. He's basically telling people they're going to be the next military power. In other words, these are going to be our henchmen. But will the Chinese fall for it? Who knows? Maybe they're trying to play them on their own game.
In politics.
Same thing with Putin when he wanted to be part of NATO. He saw that these people don't want. They don't feel that they can control Russia. No one's controlled Russia.
So why isn't Russia in the conversation of controlling the world? Well, obviously they don't control every nation. There's people, but when you look at the world as a whole, do they have more? If we went to war right now, would they have more control over the world? Do they have an advantage in any way? The East versus the West. You said Europe always comes hard after they went to war. They always retaliate in a certain way, because that's where the threats are happening right now between the East and the West, right?
Yeah, that's basically, you got your Western Christianity versus the Eastern Christianity. Excuse me.
Roman Christianity versus Eastern Christianity.
You could call it Roman Christianity.
Well, it's headed. Well, Europe. This is the Vatican. Sets the tone over there. That's a Catholic.
Christianity wouldn't have been all around the world if Constantine wouldn't have usurped it, and he used it to spread it. He spread Christianity with a sword, and the so-called real Christians, they were
They migrated. Actually, that's Constantine was 327 AD. They were actually crucifying the real Christians at that time. They were crucifying them about 500 a day if they didn't convert over. That's actually also 321 AD is the year that Constantine outlawed the 7th-day sabbatical and input the first day of sun worship. That's why they call it Sunday. Sunday. The Romans also changed the name. The names of the week. We function here in our based off the Gregorian calendar as well. No longer the lunar calendar. The names of the months. They named the names of the month. They set the time of 12 o'clock. They set the January 1st, the New Year's. That's the Roman, the Roman Catholic Church. They set that. So, even though, you hear the term Christian, when you look at the practices, though, it does seem very Roman still. You know what I mean? Like in everything that they observe.
Well, like I said, man, I don't really know who runs the world, but I'm pretty sure that all these conflicts, they've already been agreed upon. The Simpsons showed that one cartoon, it was in 2000 or something, where they got they're all around the table and NBC is there and the NBC is minimized. They're talking about they got to bring out a new threat and the other one brings out that new virus, I mean, come on, man. That cartoon pops up and now we got this very thing going on.
So do you feel, let me ask, rephrase a certain question. What do you think is the current agenda in the United States? If they're working to accomplish something, what do you think that current agenda is? And who's setting that agenda, maybe?
That's a good question. To pacify everyone and make everybody a believer into what the two-party dictatorship says, what the corporation says. Like, look at now, they're fighting about a budget, a ceiling on a budget. Come on, give me a break. They just okayed money, billions of dollars for Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
How is it you can approve money to send to another country with weapons? And guess who's making money off that? The banks of the United States and the military-industrial complex. They got money. They just print it up. They're getting desperate. There's that guy. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I think his name is last name is Ritter. Scott Ritter. That's his name. I see him on YouTube and Judge Napolitano. Is that his name? He just had him on his podcast, and this guy says, I kind of reinforced what I said. Wait till the spring comes. The Russians are going to go right through Ukraine. This might be the end of it. They might this is all to test the Russian military, test all the military equipment they have. Who knows, man? I mean,
yeah, the cold definitely affects war out there. That's one of the reasons why World War II, why Russia didn't succeed in World War II. Actually, the United States took advantage of the weather. What was it, 1940?
Man, the Russians, if it weren't for the Russians, Hitler would have won. I still think Hitler had a British spy to his ear to invade Russia. If he would have never invaded Russia, would have left Russia alone, he would have taken the whole West.
I was speaking, actually, I was wrong on that. I was speaking of the Reagan era. Reagan and Gloria, what is it?
I just seen something about Gorbachev.
Yeah, man. Gorbachev. There you go. That's what I was speaking on.
Somebody said he was a sellout. I wasn't sure if he was, but I kept it in the bag, kept that possibility open. But I just seen something. I seen a video, something about called the 300 men who run the world. And that Gorbachev, when he came to the United States, he says that he was going to publish a book, and he got the okay from the 300. And when Gorbachev came along, Soviet Union fell apart. That was the plan. But, a lot of people paid a price here too for that, man. Because, that was when Reagan came to power, he gave all those billionaires all them tax breaks. But where did he make it up at? For the first time, they taxed Social Security benefits. Because he kept saying people were making too much. So if you were paying into Social Security and a pension and you were getting money tax-free, extortion free. Well, you had to pay. That wasn't right, but it was okay to give the super rich money. Now, the guy, his wife was what was it? She was into I don't know what they call that. Going to fortune tellers and stuff like that. And here he was shooting off his mouth. Jesus Christ is this, and Jesus Christ is that. And all the while, George Bush Sr. was bringing in the cocaine and everything else.
Yeah.
It's in a way
hypocrisy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we should focus on who's actually running the world so much as focused on what do you see that's not right, and how do you personally do your little bit to kind of like resist it.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
People think, oh, what can you? This is the thing. What can you do, man? You just got to go with the flow. No, you can change certain little habits, and that's what make the dent.
You can make a positive impact.
Small ones, yeah.
They to all you and those around you.
That's what that cartoon Ants was about, wasn't it? When the locust. Remember when he said one ant ain't nothing, two ants, and he said they outnumber us.
You see strength in numbers.
That's it, man. That's just
so we're sitting here talking about who runs the world, and someone would probably think like we're maybe even conspiracy theorists.
Beautiful. I want them to say that, man. There's a conspiracy theorist. I go, yep, that's me. Because that means I'm always learning. I'm always going to look into things, and I'm always, for the most part, even though if I resist at the beginning, that's going to resonate and circulate in my mind. It's just going to stay there. And then, a lot of people say that the Lord will provide. Well, there's that the universe will provide, because the positive energy is always going to bring something to you on the truth. That's what the truth is. The truth is positive energy.
It's complete, pure positive energy too.
And I was thinking about this one before I got here. Anytime you use truth to destroy someone in a nasty way, you're not really. You're being used as well. Yeah. That's a bad vibration. You're just taking the truth and you're destroying someone. Because a lot of people are doing stuff, man.
A vessel of dishonor, they call it.
Is that what it is, man?
Yeah, a vessel of dishonor.
There you go. I like that, man.
Yeah. You have to be a vessel of honor, a vessel of dishonor. You have to decide what you're going to be a conduit to. You have to decide what you want to flow through you in your life. So that, so if you let those thoughts, of manipulation, of deception, of using people, of doing it, if you let those thoughts flow through you, then you are a vessel of dishonor. And if you have the other type of thoughts, if you have positive thoughts that you want to help people, you want to encourage people, you want to make a positive change or impact, you want to do something, then you become a vessel of honor. And that's what we are in life, like as human beings in these flesh suits that we have.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. What are we going to produce? What type of energy are we going to produce? What carbon footprint are we going to leave? And how impactful is our life going to be for others? Can it be impactful for generations? Can we teach someone something that can teach someone something that can teach someone something that can leave a long-lasting impression and change generations of people? Or do we hurt people? So that these are the choices that we have to make every day too. So
learning is painful, man. Sometimes we hurt people, and maybe that was meant to happen, to bring about the change, you and them. I don't know. I mean, if I have, people always want one person or a group of people to have all the answers. That's unrealistic. Man, I don't have all the answers.
I believe the Bible does, though. I really do. I have yet to find an answer in the Bible. I answer not in the Bible. So first, I look within myself. But if I can't figure something out, I start reading. I start looking for guidance. I start looking for understanding. I start reading in the Proverbs. I start reading in the Psalms. I start reading in the stories of Jesus, so I can try to find some similarity between what I'm dealing with or what I need to solve, and maybe some situations there. And I always find something that I could draw off. I always find something that I can focus my mind on, and I can understand the parable and and move forward. So
yeah, well, that's good, man. Like I said, I read the Bible maybe a dozen times or more, and every time I read it, I saw something different. You could read it your whole life and you're still gonna miss stuff. But you know what? I honestly believe that there are other religious texts that they have a similar impact. I mean, look, like I said, like what you said, a vessel of honor. All those religions, all those texts, they can be used in a bad way. You know, this is why. For instance, man, when I used to go to a Pentecostal church, and there's a Puerto Rican pastor, and he's up there speaking, and I understand the Spanish really well, and he's talking, and he started talking about. He said this. He made this statement. I was married at the time. He said, the salvation is for the non-Jews because the Jews don't need Jesus; they're already saved. And I just, I looked at my wife and said, he's mistaken. This is because I read it. Most of those people there, they're like, ooh, like, no, man, that's not right. She says, well, she says he's the pastor. He should know. So I don't care who he is. He's wrong. He's mistaken. And she said, well, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to go up there and tell him. I said, well, I'll go with you. And I told the guy he's wrong. And he started giving me all the Old Testament stuff. And I said, well, there's your problem right there, man. I said, go to what Jesus tells that guy that comes, that rabbi that comes in the night. You must be born again. You must change. This is what you have to accept in order for you to be born again. It was not for just the Gentiles, as they like to call them. He didn't know what to say. He really didn't. And that was the beginning of me starting to say, I got a lot of doubts about a lot of people, man. I'm gonna just keep on reading.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna let no one dictate to me.
Exactly. That's the best thing that we could do. We can read it for ourselves consistently.
Yeah, if people are gonna use it for negativity, and they do it all the time. I grew up like that. You could hurt a child like that. That's why anytime you preach fear to a kid, you're gonna preach self-doubt.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what degree they have. Everyone has an agenda. It seems this is our way. It's got to be our way.
I actually seen some studies that show that even as an adult, when we are encountering something new or something unknown, that we resort back to our childlike cognitive memory, and it's like a childly experience. That's why a lot of people deal with trauma and can't get past certain trauma because of this type of association. So if trying to do something new can cause those type of childlike feelings, trying to do something scary, would cause you to think doubtful first, fearful, and in life in general, those are two heavy hitters that keep a lot of people from progressing in life. Doubt, fear. Another couple of them are guilt, shame, because people have a past, people have and oftentimes people don't even forgive themselves. They don't feel that they deserve better, and so if you don't feel you deserve better, then it's going to be hard to give other people a certain amount of quality, if you don't even want to give yourself that type of quality. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, absolutely. That's why, one of the first things I said, I'm going to take everything that I liked about my parents, how they raised me, and everything I didn't like, I'm not going to use. And one of the first things I did as a parent, and because let me tell you, so when you become a parent, you have some bad experiences in your childhood, that residual is going to manifest itself. And if you don't catch it, you're going to just repeat what your parents did to you.
Yeah.
So I always told my kids, I always hugged them, kissed them, showed them love. I spent time with them. That's the best thing you can do with your kid, man. Spend time, because if you don't spend time with them, someone else is.
Yeah.
I worked a lot of overtime, and so in the summertime, I turned down a lot of overtime, and I spent that overtime money going with them downtown, going here, going there. We went everywhere. I got hundreds of pictures of us hanging out together, man. Hundreds of pictures, literally. And I ended up raising my kids, all three of them, when my oldest was 10, by myself, and I had a very demanding job. It can't be done, man, You gotta and you're gonna catch yourself making mistakes, And man, you gotta man up. And when you're wrong, you gotta go to your kids and say, "Man, I'm sorry. Can you forgive me?"
Yeah.
And you gotta go like that, man. You gotta do that. And even today, if I get a little bit, knucklehead with my kids, they're adults, I'll go back and apologize.
So I want to ask you a question. I want to shift over to another question. Speaking on being a dad and being in this in this moment, I saw on Facebook something that was trending, and I didn't comment on it. I kept my thoughts to myself consistently on it. But I remembered it, and I started gathering my thoughts on it before I started. I didn't even look in comments. I didn't even want to see the jibber jatter. And the post spoke on that some men, because you have daughters, right?
I have 2 daughters.
Right, and I have daughters as well. I have 2 daughters that were biologically mine, and I raised 2 additional bonus daughters there. So being a man that raised 4 daughters altogether now, and so I saw the post said that the women with children, single women with children, are less valuable than women without kids to a man. So this is the question specifically, and I got it on the screen here for our audience. It says, what kind of men see single mothers as less valuable than a woman with no kids, and where does this thinking come from? Being a father of daughters, I'm going to put my input as well, but I did want to present the question to you, being a father with daughters as well. What kind of men see single mothers as less valuable than a woman with no kids? Can you help expound on that? What if if it was if you had a daughter, you obviously have a daughter. If a man came to a daughter's life and said, hey, I don't think that you're worth this or worth that because you have children, or I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that because you have children. Is that something that you understand as a man?
The only way I can answer that is that it all depends on the man. I mean, you can't just put it right across the board. I mean, first off is, how does this man think about his mother? How does he think about his sisters? That's the first thing that has to come into play, and the impact they have on his life. And that's an individual. Really, I don't think you can put it across the board.
No, I don't think you can either.
I mean, I've dated women who've had kids before, I mean, it's a personal thing, and I just think that people bring up stuff, just like the feminist movement disregarded fathers. Oh, we don't need men. I seen a video the other day where Cher was on Donahue, and he asked her, "What are men good for?" And she said, "What are they good for? Nothing." I'm thinking to myself, this is the kind of stuff that goes on with both genders.
Gender war,
and it's by design, man. When you think about this lady, Gloria Steinem was a CIA agent. They had both parents working. You get to tax both of them. Now the kids nobody's there. Who's gonna take control of your kids? The state, the corporation, the TV. And then soon after that, now you can't spank your kids. And I don't want to say the word hit, but spank. You can't discipline them. Come on, give me a break, man.
Yeah.
So, I don't get too much into that. I said, listen, man, it's up to the individual man. But here's what I will say on this. You're a man with no children. You meet a lady who's single. Maybe she has 1 child, 2 children. But man, if she's got nothing on, if there's something about her vibration, her personality, are you going to be attracted to her? Do you want to be a part of, if it's a mess, do you want to be a part of that mess? It's all up to the individual. Or do you see something within her inside that mess that you could fix, you could help her, because you see something inside of her, a potential. It all depends. You just can't put it across the board. This is what they do in the society. Everything's across the board. Something happens.
It applies to everyone.
Now everyone's got to get punished for it. What kind of nonsense is that, man? That's that grade school stuff,
Yeah, it's a lot of nonsense. That's exactly what it is.
So, I really can't say anything other than that. It's up to the individual, I mean, You know.
So I do want, when I thought about it after a couple of days, I would think if you have an issue with it, the easiest fix for a man, for the specific type of man that does have an issue, that does see it that way, for whatever reason he sees it that way, for that guy, because I know it's not all the way across the board, obviously. But and one good example for me was Sierra and her husband, that the football player, that big famous football player.
I'm not real familiar with.
I'm not too good either. That's why I didn't even know his name. But he came in and he seems like he's playing a great part. They're doing well, and so I look at even more public relationships where there's co-parenting and there's blending a family. I don't see that as an issue. But the kind of man that does see a single mom, and my mom was a single mom, by the way, so I do take a little bit of offense to that, because
you should, man.
Yeah, because I see what my mom actually went through to make sure that we were okay, and it was horrible that she had to go through that because unfortunately my dad wasn't ready for what he signed up for, so go ahead.
I don't think anyone is, man. You got to have that commitment.
Yeah, I understand that.
You got to have that. You got to have that commitment. That's what I said about fear. There's two types of fears, man. One that will destroy you, and the other one that'll make you a better person for it, man. But and that's not judging your pops, but No,
I understand.
This is the whole thing. You got these people at the top manipulating all these sentiments, what single moms, single fathers, I was a single dad, man. I raised 2 girls and a boy, man. Yeah, I made buku mistakes, man.
Yeah. I sure did.
But my kids love me, man. They'll tell you. My kids will tell you, man, I took them everywhere. This is the way I did. Not only did I take them everywhere, I had them in an after school program, and there are some kids that are grown today, man. When they see me, they go, "Hey, Pops." I used to have them all come over, man. My sister came over one Saturday morning. I must have had 10 kids sleep over, man. They were all in the living room, man. And I had a few mothers say, "You're the only man that I'll let my girls spend the night at your house."
Mm-hmm.
They spent the night at my house, man. That's the way it is, man. They see me. Some of them see me today, and they give me hugs and everything.
Yeah, no, and that's the power of being an active dad. Because it's very impactful to be an active dad and a strong guy and someone that they can look up to and whatnot.
Let me just add to that thing. But there's a guy, like you said, a man sees a woman, a single mom with 2 kids. There might be something, he likes the lady. Mm-hmm. He really has a lot of affection for her. Just out of that, man, he looks at those kids, and depending on this guy's thinking, his heart, he might say, "You know what, man, I like this lady so much, man. I'm gonna bring her a good life. I'm gonna add to her life, and I'm gonna make her kids have a good life too."
Praise God.
That's the kind of man. And you see that with women, man. They raise another man's kids,
Yeah.
But a lot of men, they do this. You see those videos with kids are grown and they come to their stepfather and they say, "Hey, listen, I want you to adopt me."
I had a stepdad for a while. I did have a stepdad, and he was very impactful for me as well. And I can say personally, he never did me wrong. And he spanked me one time. I still remember real clearly. I didn't like it whatsoever at that time because I was taking advantage of his kindness. I was, I lied about something. I did something I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing. And he treated me like a son. That's what it, I didn't understand it like that. But he cared about me. He treated me like a son. And I still remember years later after he passed away, my brother asked me and my brother were talking about it, and he did mention to me. He said, "Hey man, do you remember him?" I said, "Of course I remember him." And then I said to him, I was still a little bit. I said, "I'm still unsure about that day when he hit me." He said, and then my brother tells me, he said, "No, you deserved it." He said, "You deserved it. He never did us wrong. He was always there for us." I said, "You know what? You're right, and I can appreciate that."
Listen, man. The first time I went to Puerto Rico was in the 78, 79 snowstorm. That was the first time I went there. When I seen how they were living over there, and I got a good sense of how my own man was raised, man.
Mhm.
And I said, you know what, man, all that shit he did, all that beat down,
Ah,
you know, I understand now,
yeah.
you know, but here's the thing, man. You know, there's good men out there, man. There's good women out there. If a man is willing to raise another man's kids because he loves that woman, he comes to learn to love those kids, you know, bless him, man.
You know, I'm going to throw a different perspective out
But
there for a
can
second.
we take a quick break, man?
Oh, we sure can. Are you all right there?
Yeah, man. I want to take a break for about 4 or 5 minutes.
No worries, my brother. Sure can.
All right.
Uh-huh.
All right, let me just put this down, man.
Uh-huh. All right. So on my end, what kind of men see single mothers as less valuable than a mom with no kids? You know, I think there's a couple things about that. I also think that there is a twisted view of it. So, one, a man can have a preference. That's one thing. I don't think most men have an issue with it whatsoever. I think it is really just a preference. But one of the things that you do want to look into as a brother and as a young man, if, you know, I would say, make sure your finances are in order, you know, as much as you can, because that's the commitment. And I do think that some brothers, when they express this statement that a single mom is somehow less valuable than a woman with no kids, there's a couple of misconceptions that I want to point out here. One of them is that children are a blessing from the Lord. First of all, children are a blessing. Children don't devalue anyone. They do require more resources. So a man is reasonable to consider that before he gets into something. So it may lower the income ratio that you have left over, your net, after expenses. If a man who's looking at it from a financial standpoint, if you're talking about value, then that's the only value you really have, you know, a leg to stand on, because you can't determine the value of a person. God set a value already, and He said we are children of God. There is no higher value than children of God. The world may have convinced a lot of people to lessen who they are, and there are people who have convinced a lot of other people who, you know, have convinced them to think that they're this or they're that, or put them in this box or that box, or this label or that box, or, you know, got people thinking that they're silly or foolish or stupid and this and that. But at the end of the day, we cannot put a value on a human being. Only the Creator can put a value on a human being. So with that said, there's no way that a man can can say a woman is less valuable in any kind of way, because only the Creator set the value, and the value, and by default we are children of the Most High. So we have the utmost value automatically by default. That's why we have to care for ourselves and love ourselves, because we have to express that value. But outside, if we're speaking of value, then it has to be some type of mathematical reference, some type of actual currency that we're speaking of. So I can understand why a man would have to consider his finances a bit if a woman has kids, because you have to take care of those kids. They're going to require more resources. So a man might lose a little value, a little net value, but that doesn't make a woman more valuable, and in my opinion, work harder anyways. You know what I mean? And kids bring different aspects to a relationship, because, you know, they bring joy, they bring a lot of learning experience. You know, most parents are always going to are going to tell you that they learn a lot from their children, because it's the teaching experience that opens the doors for learning as well. we're trying to get someone else to understand something, and we're opening our mind and lowering our communication for them to understand something, and in the return they teach us something. So we have to keep these things in mind, in my opinion, but there's no way that is valid. I shoot that down. I decline that a woman is less valuable because listen, what if one of her children is going to be a superstar one day?
There you go.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Then what? She was holding a prized possession. You understand? So that's silly thinking. For me, Henry, that's silly thinking, to think that a woman, her value is determined by her children. And even the Bible says children are a blessing of the Lord and a heritage of the Lord. So I would think a child actually increases a person's value in the real spiritual things in life,
Yeah, that man right there might just need them kids that aren't his. They might bring out something in him. This is the whole thing where when you start putting labels, that's where a lot of meaning, a lot of humanity gets lost. It's like all these, they'll always, like when Ronald Reagan was running for president, I seen through his class war and prejudice that he was using his campaign. And then when I would go to work at the hospital, I would see people like, white people going with it. And I would just come right out. I said, man, the man's a straight up racist. Those are all codes. And these people were saying, oh, most of the people that are on public aid are black and brown. I go, are you insane? I said, all you got to do is look it up, man. Just start studying. There's more white people in the United States. Public aid was created for white people. There was a time, and I didn't know this back then, on this part, black people of color were prohibited from getting public aid. They called it relief. And it was just designated for them. And Ronald Reagan was pouncing on this because he was creating another class war. And this is the way I feel about it, man. They're gonna take our money, taxes. So instead of putting it into bombs and sending it overseas to Europe, which is where a lot of it goes, or to other countries that this government has surrogate governments. They say it's aid, but that aid doesn't go to the people. It goes to some of the politicians that they bought off, and then it goes to U.S. companies that do all the business there. I would rather that money go to that single mother. Maybe she could stay home and raise them kids, and while they're in school, she can take a class so they could teach her how to be a better parent, she can become more self-sufficient. But see, they don't want us self-sufficient because this is all about undercover slave class. That's all. That's what it's about, man.
Yeah, I can see that. There were herds.
Yeah,
we're just a herd.
That's it, man. What can you produce? What can you produce? If you can no longer produce, you're of no use to us. That's the whole thing. You're trading your time for money, and then they take it right back in higher prices, more taxes. I see it all the time. And then they get caught up in these words: socialism, capitalism. There's a good documentary on YouTube by Zeitgeist called The Addendum Project. Excuse me. And if you watch it, man, this guy here, he kind of reinforced some of the things I was thinking. If you take all money out of every society, do you think society would be better or worse for it?
I would say we have to be better because now we have to barter.
Right, you can barter, and here's the other thing. You can get to do what you want, and you can come with fresh ideas, and it won't and progressive ideas, innovations that won't be shut down because someone won't make money off of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people will tend to say, well, then we wouldn't have podcasts like this, and we wouldn't have shows like this, or we wouldn't have that. But they never give it the thought that it won't be needed. We'll be in a different direction, and we won't have to be sitting here doing all these other things. People can't see it like that, man.
No.
This is why you don't want to. Let me tell you something, man. Someone asked me, he says, well, I remember in a business college, I was taking a course, and they asked me, they asked us to write down some of the things that I put high value on, that I wish for. My number one thing was having a family, and everything else came after that. Being married and having children. That's what I wrote down first, man.
Nice.
And then when I pray, when my kids were young, my prayer was always that they would grow up to be a good human being and not cause any hurt, damage, or destruction on another person. And then you got to work at that. And that's all there's to it. There's no one freaking little stinking answer, man. You just got to put some effort into it, man. You can't let words like socialism scare you, because where does the word socialism come from? Society. Before the Europeans, before any invention of money, everything was done, I would assume, collectively. You had and you didn't have rulers. You had leaders, and they served. I mean, if you want to be a boss and a leader, man, that takes up a lot of your time. Then you got to step on people, because you have to manipulate, and you have to lie, and you have to do this. That's what anarchy says. No rulers, no one being ruled. And they think that it's going to be complete chaos, but it's not. It was just, I seen a video where an Aborigine from Australia said before the Europeans came there was no money, there was no poverty, there were no jails, nothing.
There were no classes like that either.
Yeah.
Like the king was the biggest servant. He was responsible for the people.
Yeah. And then you had your elders. Just like the North American tribes here, man, nations, they had elders. And it all goes back, man. People want to be in charge, the boss, That's why when a man says, I'm the king of my home, they think that they forget, man. They're supposed to be a servant.
Yeah, absolutely. And fellow servant.
Yeah, I mean, the fear of loss can be a good thing. You don't want to screw something up and lose a good thing, right?
No, absolutely.
Come on, man. This is what I see these videos, and you're a man, I'm a man. The last thing any man wants is a woman all the time telling him, when are you going to ask him, when are you going to do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Man, I remember many a times when I was approached and I was shown love and respect and sweetness. And then, when you get a chance, can you go take care of this? Man, you look and you just got all that affection, all that prepayment. You get your butt up and you go take care of it. I took care of it, baby. Boom, that's it. That's all they got to do.
So leads me to the next question then. Speaking of women, what do you know about women?
Very little.
We're in trouble.
Hey, man, what man knows about women, man? Just
facts. And I got daughters, so I'm still learning, trying to learn, trying to navigate that relationship.
I will say this, man. I remember my mom used to barely spank us, man. But when she will not spank you, man, I got to do this. I can only imagine when I got to do this. I'm going to make it worth my while. Bam, boy. My old man was quick. Boom, boom, boom. And that was it. No.
That's what I needed. I needed boom, boom, boom.
Man, she comes in, no. Chasing you around the table, throwing that chancla at you, getting you with that belt. And, man, you can see, man, you made me do this. You be there crying, cussing under your freaking, all your snivels, and all that. But, man, women are beautiful, man. Women instinctively want to care for you. Women talk a lot, speak a lot, because they're the ones who had the baby. They're the ones that are going to have a lot more interaction. They're going to communicate more. I don't know how true this is, but I read somewhere where it doesn't matter if the woman is left-handed. I don't know how true this is. When she feeds the baby up, when she's giving him a bottle, or when she rocks him to sleep, she's going to rock him on the left side, because that's where the baby hears the heartbeat. So
I don't know either.
We want to provide, man. We as men want to provide. I don't want to be nobody's boss. Come on, man. that's too much work.
That's a lot of work.
I'm a leisure mother flower, man.
So what does the relationship look like to you? Have you been in a relationship before? I know
No.
you were married.
Yeah, no, man. I've been single all this time, man.
For real?
Yeah.
Never got married in your life?
I got married and I got divorced, and that was it. Man.
Okay, how long were you married for?
Not long.
How long?
Let me put it to you like this, man. It didn't last long. I've been divorced longer than I was ever married. So, and you know what, man? I'm good being by myself. You know, I got to learn a lot about me. And what the heck, man? There's no need for me to get married. I would never get married again. Okay. And I didn't want to get married back
But you just said you love women.
Yeah, I love women, man.
But not enough to marry them?
No. Well, marriage for me is a corporate merger. You got to go get a permit. That was the first thing. Why do I got to get the permit? Why do I need these motherflowers? Permission. And as I started learning, especially after I got divorced, I started getting these thoughts in my head, man. You know, two people working and still you don't make enough, and then you watch TV, and the thing is you got to consume, you get caught up, but they tax you. They tax both of you. They tax your labor. So it's a corporate merger, man. And I started thinking, nah, this ain't right, man. This is like two companies coming together, and the government's gonna get their piece from you. And I learned too, when you take a loan, never put your spouse's name on that loan.
Why not?
Because then now, if you don't, I'll tell you, if it's just one name under that loan, the other spouse is able to get other loans. And that won't affect them. The loan that you have won't affect them.
Right. Being a co-signer, it's gonna.
Right.
Now you're both stuck to one loan.
Right.
I can understand that.
And then if you're married through the courts, like I said, you're two corporate entities. Now you're responsible for your spouse's whatever they get into. You're responsible for that.
But aren't there tax breaks for filing joint and stuff like that?
That's the con game, man.
That's the con game.
If you're not married and you're filing as a separate person, so doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter really. If when you look at it, they don't teach us anything about capitalism, taxes, or anything in school, right? So they got us, man. They got us where they want to. This is why they don't teach it. Just like they don't teach you anything about the Bill of Rights in school, or the Constitution as a whole, and what U.S. codes are and all that. I'm learning all this stuff now as a grown man, and I'm getting angry because, hey, man, I've been duped.
We've been colonized.
I've been sucker punched, man. And then,
You've been educated.
Yeah, I've been educated, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they call it, right? That's what they call it here, education.
But I wouldn't get married again, man. Women are beautiful, man. Women are beautiful. I mean, you know, what can you say, man? Treat them with respect, love them, you know. Don't argue with them because you're never going to win. You know that. You're never going to win. It will somehow, some way. But you can't convince them of things otherwise when they respect you. If she respects you, man, you're gonna have a whole lot better time.
So speak on it. What are things that can help that? You know, is that a major thing?
I guess a man has to be consistent with a woman, right? He has to be consistent with her. She needs to see the value in who he is, and not what she thinks what a man should be. Ain't no one's gonna live up to being a man to some other, you know, information they give us. You know, just like a woman, you know. I mean, if you love your woman, right, you're gonna do everything for her. And if she respects you, she's gonna do everything for you. You know, I always wonder what that was in the New Testament. You know, husbands love your wives, wives respect your man, your husband. A man's ego is a very fragile thing.
Yeah, it is.
That's
especially when he's providing and protecting.
That's why all these brothers are killing each other out here. And to hurt a man's ego is very dangerous. You see that all the time in jealousy.
So wonderful. Leads me to the next question. You see it a lot in jealousy. The question is admiration a lost emotion? And I want to put some context to this real quick. Is admiration a lost emotion? And I say this because a lot of times as young men, when we look towards each other and we encounter each other and when we engage each other in school and social environments, as we're learning about ourselves and others and our capabilities and others' capabilities and our intellectual capabilities, and our ability to communicate in the level that we communicate at, it should be natural to have a level of admiration for another young brother that does things better than you. It should inspire you and aspire you to do better, to say, hey, this is one of my peers. If he can do it, I can do it. It's only a matter of time. I can learn from him. He can help me get there faster. This is what I see as admiration, a pure emotion of admiration. I never see this expressed in our community. This is why I pose this question. Is admiration a lost emotion? I never see this type of interaction between two young brothers, even an older, younger brother, etc., as a form of admiration. But what I do see consistently over and over and over again in our community is going to be a form of envy or jealousy. Instead, when you see someone see someone that does something better than you or more efficient or effective or a little bit further along on the road, that the initial reaction or emotion of that should be admiration is being perverted into something that's more of jealousy or envy based on the ego. And I think that is definitely destroying our male bonds, so to speak, the strength of our community as young men growing up. Can you speak on that? Do you feel the same way? Do you see the same thing? Do you feel admiration is a lost emotion? And if not, then where do you see it fitting in the emotional scale?
As you were saying all these things, I was just thinking about it, man. My childhood, there were some guys, man, that I admired. They were good with their hands. Some, they could fight. Others were good music, and others were good at building cars, literally, man, mechanics. And we were teenagers. I didn't really understand when you said it's a lost emotion. I think it's maybe misunderstood, maybe lost. A number of things, envy. When you have nothing and you're always being dogged, you're always being spoken down to, that can create envy. Or you're pumped up too much, and then someone comes along, by your family, you're pumped up real high, and then when you shouldn't be, and you haven't really done anything to earn it, and then you see someone comes along and does better than you. I mean, I can imagine that there's a lot of different answers that can come into this. I mean, everyone, I'm sure, has felt envy and jealousy towards other people, and you could feel it eating you up. I know it has eaten me up. And then I noticed that when I admire someone, it kind of edifies me, man. And you could feel the body chemistry is different. Man, that person, dude, man, I admire that, and like you said a moment ago, it makes you want to do better. Maybe not at that particular thing they're doing, but at something else. So yeah, maybe it is a lost emotion. Maybe I think it may be also, you see all these people are admiring these rock stars and they're going nuts, and it may be misdirected.
So I'm curious because when I think about it, I say to myself, I think jealousy and envy also start as admiration, and then we are programmed to hate each other. In reality, we're not programmed to admire each other. We're not taught to recognize positive qualities in each other. We're taught to notice negative qualities in each other, and then we're taught to address that. Hey, you're doing this, you're doing that. This is my block, this is your block. I'm gonna shoot you, you're gonna shoot me. Type of attitude. This is literally something that is commonly taught. There's older brothers in the neighborhood that are teaching younger brothers, literally right now, even in this day and age, that if you see this guy from this block right here, then we're gonna do something to him, and because they're gonna do the same thing to us. I think in a way, gangs, I think is a very brilliant way to separate, to make two brothers think that they're enemies. because in reality, there's nothing that separates our community in reality. Is those labels, those boxes. You see what I'm saying? Someone always having a label. But I think jealousy even starts at admiration, even in a negative tone, to say, hey, this guy over there is known to beat up all of these people. I think in the first initial, even for a man, the first initial thought is he's a badass. He's a strong guy, you know what I mean? And then it goes from I can take him, ego comes in, like he's not better than me though, and then it goes to jealousy and it goes to envy. But I think the initial thought is admiration, and because we're not taught to deal with it, we're not taught what it is, we're not taught to be aware of it, to be on the lookout for it, so we can recognize a positive emotion and act in a positive way. We allow the positive aspect to run through. We catch on to the ego. We catch on to the, to the jealousy and the envy, and then we express that instead. Do you see where I'm going with it? Maybe.
Yeah, I do. Competition. Like you just stated. First, you admire that person because he's a badass, and then you want to compete against them. You want that now.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what you're admiring. Are you admiring a negative aspect of a person, which leads to that negativity, jealousy and envy later on? Or could it be your own shortcomings? Could it be that, maybe even at home, you're spoken down to? I guess anyone could come up with an answer for that. If let's just say, like you said, this guy's this guy's excels in a particular thing, and this person is doing well, and it goes back to leadership. Then this person goes, this individual start teaching these other people how to do it. Now he's got them on the same platform with him or her, and he's elevating them. I can't see much envy and jealousy from that.
Mm-hmm.
But it all depends on who that individual is and what they're going through in their personal life. Because I've been jealous and envy of other people.
How'd you handle it?
I started doing my own thing, man. I did my own thing.
Mind your own business?
Yeah, I mind my own business, man. But I started doing my own thing and didn't focus on that. Focus on me,
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was working, as you get older, man, you start learning these things. Some people were really good at a certain thing. I'm not going to compete against them on that. Nah. I found my niche and I ran with it,
Mm-hmm.
And even then when I got promoted, I had learned how to bring people together, man. A lot of people together. And people have talents. You're not going to be like anyone else. Just learn to appreciate it. But you're right, it is. Admiration is lost. It's misdirected. Sometimes I had heard this. I don't know if I heard it or we were in a conversation with a group of people, but that's sometimes. And I know problem will catch flack and some people are gonna get upset with this, but sometimes guys, man, young boys, man, and stuff, they admire another person and they confuse it for homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
There's male bonding, man. That has nothing to do with anything with sex, man. It's a lot of love into this person, man.
I agree. And I also, because I think a lot of young boys this day and age make that mistake.
Their food is poisoned too from 2 generations ago. So
yeah, that, and I think there also is a bit of a program going on. I believe right now that the environment, the social environment, and especially with the digital world, and I believe if you speak against certain things, they'll cancel you. This is one of the questions that we were going to speak on, cancel culture. But
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So this is this. So how you just said I might catch some flack for this. That's you being aware of cancel culture. So you being aware that if you say something, that somebody might come and say, hey, you can't say this, and because you're saying this, we're going to cancel you. We're not going to allow your voice to be heard. We're going to shut down your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram. We're not going to allow what you're talking about to be pushed through. This is what cancel culture does. In comparison to aligning yourself with the current agenda and getting overexposure. So if you do come out and say, hey, I do agree with this current agenda, then all of a sudden you get more exposure, you get more opportunity to be seen. You're going with the flow, you're going with the program, so you're going to benefit off of it. But if you're not, if you're saying things that are against our agenda, then we're going to shut your mouth, basically. This is what cancel culture is.
It's always been around. They just gave it a different name, That's all it is. It's always been around. You disagree with something that is either being implemented or that has always been for the most part. They're gonna put you in check or cancel you. It's all around it. It's always been here. They just decided to give it this name or use this. I don't know who came up with it, but it's a very clever usage of words, because I see it being used not just by the neoliberals, but by the conservatives as well. So like I said, man, it's all a game. It's all a conquer and divide, or divide and conquer, however you want to look at it. But I think they conquer you first, and then they divide you.
Yeah, I think they have to.
They have to conquer you, and how they do that is very slick.
Or propaganda.
They do it
They use propaganda too to divide without conquering. They'll misinformation. You know how they do around the world.
Yeah, it's like both sides have a lot, or both sides or all sides have a fault at this, man. But I've noticed that cancel culture is also being used by the conservatives when you want to talk about our culture being introduced into the mainstream, our history. They'll call it critical race theory. But that was a funny thing that the liberals did. They didn't want to call it critical race fact. They said theory. So that in theory, that means that maybe it's not true. We have to look at it.
It's only an idea.
Right. So I peeped that play and I says, it's not critical CRT. It's critical race fact. That's why that guy DeSantis doesn't want to put it in school. But then you have the other side who will take it and use it as propaganda and will present it in such a hateful way, in a promote fear. But the thing about it is, both of these things is all in the same puppet show with the same puppet master, same puppet maker. I just saw something on Instagram yesterday, man. I copied some of it. I want to say this, most of the inventions in the United States were created by black people.
That's good.
And this was their argument. I remember I used to work with a guy who used to say, if it weren't for us white people, black people and brown people won't have nothing. We created everything. So I had asked him, what did you create? What do you mean we? You taking credit for what someone else did? I said, well, name it. He started naming all these things. And I just told him, well, I don't know who created them. So I can't agree with you on that. Well, here we come along years later, 10 years later, I'm saying that just about everything was created by non-white, non-European. And I had told this to someone not too long ago. And they got upset with me. I says, if there were no non-Europeans here in the United States, your culture would be the same kind of dull one that it is in Europe. They got a little bit upset with me,
They got a little seasoning in this country, though. They got a little salt.
I says, and then one guy was an Italian, and he says, yeah, well, the Italians have pasta. I go, well, by the way, that came from China. That came from Asia, pasta. Oh, well, we got rice. I go, again, that came from Asia. And maybe it came from, I don't know where else.
Came from Asia, yeah.
All these things. There's a scripture in the Bible, and I don't want to get too deep on that, but it's just me talking freely,
Absolutely.
There's that scripture, and the younger brother will rule over the older brother. Well, who's the older brother, man? The people in Africa. And look who's the younger brother all the way up there in Europe. And they've managed to do this. And I can't remember what else entailed in that scripture, but man, it's cancel culture's always been around. Now they just have this name for it. It's censorship. That's all it is. Whoever's in power will censor those who aren't.
Who's in power again?
That's the big question. Who is in power? I know who their facilitators are. You know, all these rich people. There's old money and there's new money, and all you ever hear about is new money. But hey, man, new money gets what do you call it? Cancel culture, culture cancel, whatever.
Yeah.
Bill Gates got that first taste when he during Clinton's presidential years. He got a little bit too cocky. He thought all that new money he made was gonna make him a boss man. Nah, man, they went after him. They made him force his antivirus stuff because he's the one that created it anyway. And he had to share all his stuff now with all the other operators, right? And then before that, he wouldn't give to any political party. Now look at him. Now look at where he's at. He's out of the computer game, but look what he's at.
He's in a land game, isn't he?
Land game, virus game, medical game. New money can come down crashing. The movie that illustrated that the best in a comedy is Trading Places.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Okay, you seen how they took that guy, man? I don't know what his name was that Dan Aykroyd played.
Yeah.
They replaced him with Eddie Murphy. Yeah. They replaced him with Eddie Murphy, right? And Eddie Murphy went along with it until he found the redeeming part is Eddie Murphy heard it while he was in the bathroom. That shows his humanity. What did he do? He seeked that Dan out. He didn't like what they did. He could have just said, man, no, that's cool. But he heard them. He was next. Which is what most people here don't hear. You're next. They're riding high on the hog, but they don't know they're next. Even Elon Musk might go down.
Yeah, it's a fragile game up there.
Yeah,
they took Kanye down.
The people who are in charge are never on the news. So all you got to do is look to who are the old money families of the United States, especially in Europe. You know, there's that video going out showing who controls the Rothschilds, and it's a cabal that's supposedly in Rome, and one of the families' name is Cassini. And they're of that supposed Babylonian thing. So cancel culture, man, it's always been here. Censorship, that's all.
Understood. So we're going on 2 hours in here, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up here. But Henry, I do appreciate very much. I look forward to having you in. Also, with other people here, you know, we look forward to having some more podcasts. We look forward to just having more general conversation, different topics.
That's all it is, general conversation. I'm no expert on nothing.
Yeah, me neither, my brother. And that's why
I know already there's probably some negativity, probably people thinking, but that's okay, man. Keep thinking negative, and hopefully someone will reinforce this, or this is just a seed, man. You know,
that's all it is, my brother.
Just
provoke thought.
It's a spark, man. That's all, because every day I'm learning. There's things I see on Facebook now that pops up, and you posted this 5 years. Do you want to share it again? I look at it and go, man, I didn't know what the hell. So I was on the right track, but I was mistaken. I'm part of it, you know. But I'm not gonna repost that, man. You know, I'm growing. I'm still growing, man. You know, and once you stop learning, man, the only thing you should stop learning is when you're 6 feet under.
There is no stop learning. This is a journey of life. That's the moment you stop, like the moment you even consider that thought, the moment you think you know anything, the moment you're not thinking of what you're going to learn today, you are doing yourself the worst disjustice you could possibly do in your life. You're taking your experience away.
Yeah, just, man, all them young brothers and sisters and all those older people, man, love your kids, man, love your grandkids. You know, pray. That's what you pray for on them, man. I don't care to which God you pray. If it's a good vibration and it's love, it's gonna be heard. And you know, love your kids, man. Wish that they don't harm anybody. But things got to change, because the people that are in charge, they're not doing it for us, man. They're doing it to hold on to power and please their masters.
Absolutely. That's why we put these conversations out there, just to change the direction of some of the conversation that's going on. That's really distracting. It's not trying to accomplish anything. There's not a real positive purpose in our community for some of the conversations. So we want to make sure that we are putting some conversations out there. I'm always going to be plugging you in when you get a chance to. Hopefully, become common to our audience and build off that. So I appreciate you for coming in. All right, my brother.
All right. right, man. Thank you very much, Frank. And by the way, man, this is a good man. I only know him for about 2 years and not all that well. He's a good brother. He's out here to help. He's out here to clean your life up, clean up your body too, man. Come check out his shop.
Yeah, all praises, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, like you said, though, you can come out, check out the shop, www.thenaturalbranches.com. Also, if you want to check in with some of the podcasts, americatapin.com. And we want to thank you. You can add us on social media. Look at the description here of these videos for social media links. And you can also catch us on those websites, our social media links. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We look forward to checking in with you next time. And until then, grace and peace.